The house was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that made your skin crawl, as if something unseen was lurking in the shadows, waiting. Sarah Harper stood in the dimly lit hallway of her home, her pulse hammering as she stared at the slightly ajar bedroom door. It had been locked when she left for work. She was sure of it. Her husband, Adam, wasn't supposed to be home. He was away on a business trip. At least, that's what he had told her. Sarah took a shaky step forward, her fingers gripping the edge of the door as she pushed it open. The room was dark, the only source of light a faint glow from the bedside lamp. And then she saw it. A single gold necklace resting on the pillow, delicate, unmistakable. It wasn't hers. Her breath hitched. She reached for it with trembling hands, but just as her fingers brushed against the cold metal, her phone vibrated violently in her pocket. She nearly dropped the necklace as she fumbled for her phone, heart racing. The caller ID sent a chill down her spine. Unknown number. She hesitated. Then, cautiously, she answered. Hello? A pause. Then, a woman's voice, low, urgent, and trembling. Leave while you can. He isn't who you think he is. Sarah had always believed in fairy tales. And Adam Harper? He was hers. They had met at a coffee shop on a rainy afternoon, one of those cliché encounters where he offered her a napkin and joked about the unpredictable weather. He was charming, effortlessly confident, the kind of man who made the world feel brighter just by existing. Within months, they were inseparable. He knew how to make her laugh, how to comfort her after a long day, how to make her feel like the most loved woman in the world. And when he proposed, there wasn't a doubt in her mind. Adam was perfect. Or at least, that's what she thought. At first, the cracks were small. Harmless lies. I had a late meeting, he would say, coming home past midnight. Or, I lost my phone, that's why I didn't answer. Then, there were the unexplained bank withdrawals, the missing hours in his schedule, the way his smile faltered for just a fraction of a second whenever she asked about his past. She told herself she was overthinking. That all marriages had secrets. But then, there was the night she found the locked drawer in his study. Adam had always been meticulous about his workspace, papers neatly stacked, pens arranged in perfect rows. But that night, as she searched for a spare charger, she noticed something strange. A drawer. A locked one. She knew she shouldn't, but the nagging voice in her head was relentless. Her fingers trembled as she tried different keys from the house. Click. The drawer slid open. Inside, she found an envelope. Thick. Heavy. She pulled it out, her heart hammering. Inside, photos of Adam with other women, smiling, holding hands, kissing, and beneath them another set of photos. These ones were different. The same women, but they were missing. Their names scrawled in the corner of each picture. Dates listed. Sarah's stomach twisted. These weren't just past relationships. These were victims. She could feel it in her bones. And worst of all, at the very bottom of the stack, was a photo of herself. With a date next to it. A date that hadn't arrived yet. Her blood ran cold. She slammed the drawer shut, shoving the photos back inside. Her breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. This had to be a mistake. A misunderstanding. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. Suddenly, the front door creaked open. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Adam wasn't supposed to be home yet. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she hurriedly locked the drawer. She turned just as he appeared in the doorway, his eyes scanning the room. "What are you doing in here?" he asked, his voice light, but there was something off in his gaze. Something calculating. "Just looking for my charger," she lied, forcing a smile. A long pause. Then, Adam smiled back. But his eyes, they weren't smiling at all. That night, Sarah lay awake, the weight of the photos pressing against her mind like a vice. The unknown caller's warning echoed in her ears. Leave while you can. But how? How do you escape a man who had planned every detail of your life? How do you run when you don't know who's watching? And worst of all, what happens when he finds out that you know the truth? Sarah Harper sat in the dimly lit kitchen, staring at the untouched cup of tea in front of her. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the ceramic mug, desperate to steady herself. Across the room, Adam leaned casually against the counter, his eyes fixed on her. "You seem quiet tonight," he said, his voice smooth. Sarah forced a small smile. "Just tired." She prayed he couldn't hear the hammering of her heart. She had spent the entire day trying to act normal, pretending she hadn't found the horrifying pictures in his study, pretending she hadn't received the chilling phone call. But inside, she was unraveling. She had married a man who was not only a liar, but possibly something much worse. And he was watching her. Always watching. The moment Adam left for work the next morning, Sarah sprang into action. She grabbed the locked drawer's key from its hiding spot and yanked it open again. The photos were still there, along with the list of names. She focused on the most recent woman before her name appeared, Anna Peterson. Sarah's stomach clenched. Anna's name was marked with a date from 3 months ago. Had she vanished? Frantically, she searched online. It didn't take long to find an article. Local woman, Anna Peterson, missing for 3 months, last seen with unidentified male companion. Sarah's blood ran cold. A picture accompanied the article. It was Anna. And standing beside her, slightly blurred in the background, was Adam. Her husband. She barely had time to process it before she heard the unmistakable sound of the front door unlocking. Her breath caught in her throat. Adam. She shoved the documents back into place, slammed the drawer shut, and hurried into the living room, just as he stepped inside. He set down his briefcase and scanned the room, his eyes lingering on her for a second too long. Then, he smiled. "What did you do today?" he asked. Sarah forced a chuckle. "Nothing exciting. Just some errands." Adam nodded, but she could feel it, the shift in his demeanor. He was testing her. And she had no idea if she had passed. That night, Sarah waited until Adam was asleep before she quietly slipped out of bed. Her heart pounded as she tiptoed down the hallway, clutching her phone. She needed help. Someone. Anyone. Her fingers hovered over 911. But then, a notification flashed across her screen. "Unknown number, you need to leave. Now." Sarah's breath hitched. Whoever this was, they were watching, too. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but as she turned toward the door, a hand grabbed her wrist. She gasped. Adam. His grip was firm, his expression unreadable. "Going somewhere," he murmured. She forced a laugh, trying to pull away. "Just getting some water." Adam didn't let go. Instead, he studied her, his eyes dark and knowing. And then, he leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. "You're lying." Sarah felt the walls closing in. Adam knew. Or at least, he suspected. Her hands clenched into fists as panic surged through her veins. She had to get out. But as Adam finally released her wrist and gave her a slow, almost amused smile, she realized something chilling. She wasn't just trying to escape a dangerous man. She was trying to escape someone who had already planned for this. Someone who had been here before. And this time, he wouldn't let her go. Sarah barely slept that night. She lay in bed, frozen beneath the covers, as Adam's slow, steady breaths filled the silence. But even though his eyes were closed, she knew better than to trust it. She could feel it, the tension in his body, the way his fingers twitched slightly as if he was waiting for something. Or watching. She wasn't just living with a liar. She was sleeping next to a predator. And she was running out of time. The next morning, Sarah went through the motions as if nothing had changed. She made coffee. She kissed Adam goodbye as he left for work. She waited exactly 15 minutes before she grabbed her phone and called the unknown number that had messaged her the night before. A gruff voice answered. "You should have left already." Sarah's pulse pounded. "Who is this?" "I don't have time to explain," the voice said urgently. "He's watching you. He knows you're suspicious. And trust me, you're in more danger than you realize." Sarah swallowed hard. "I can't just leave." "You need to disappear," the voice interrupted. "He's done this before." Sarah's breath caught. "What do you mean?" A pause. Then, the voice whispered. "Anna Peterson isn't missing." The line went dead. Sarah's knees buckled. She gripped the edge of the counter, her mind reeling. Anna wasn't missing? That meant only one thing. She was dead. Sarah had to act fast. If Adam suspected her, then he wouldn't let her leave easily. She needed a way out, one that wouldn't set off alarms. She grabbed her laptop and opened a private browsing window. How to fake your own disappearance. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through articles, scanning for anything useful. She needed to erase her digital trail. Withdraw cash in small amounts. Leave behind misleading clues. But just as she clicked on another link, her laptop screen went black. A single message appeared. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" Sarah's blood turned to ice. The laptop powered down completely. And then, a soft creak came from behind her. She turned slowly. Adam stood in the doorway, watching, smiling. Sarah's heart slammed against her ribs. "Think. Stay calm." She forced a laugh. "My laptop's acting weird. I think it crashed." Adam didn't move. "Maybe I can fix it," he said. He stepped forward, but Sarah quickly shut the laptop and stood. "It's fine. I'll take it to a repair shop later." For a long moment, Adam just stared at her. Then, finally, he nodded. "Okay." But something had shifted. That night, Adam didn't leave for his usual late-night gym session. The next morning, he took her car keys, claiming her tires needed air. By noon, her phone lost service. And when she checked the front door, the deadbolt was locked from the outside. Sarah was a prisoner. And Adam was making sure she had nowhere to run. That evening, Sarah sat at the kitchen table, hands clenched into fists. Adam was winning. He was cutting off her escape. She needed help. But just as she was about to try the back door, a knock echoed through the house. She froze. Adam was upstairs. "Who?" Another knock. Louder this time. Slowly, hard hammering, Sarah crept toward the front door. She peeked through the peephole. A man in a hooded jacket stood outside. And in his hand was a burned photo. A photo of Anna Peterson, with 3 words written across it in red ink. "You're next." Sarah's fingers trembled as she traced the bold, red letters on the photo. "You're next." She ripped open the door, ready to confront whoever had left the message. But the man in the hooded jacket was already gone. The cold night air rushed in, making her shiver. The street was empty. No footsteps. No sign of anyone lurking in the shadows. Sarah turned the photo over. A single address was scrawled on the back. It was in a part of town she had never been to. A warning? A clue? A trap? She didn't know. But right now, she had no other choice. Sarah's time was running out. Adam was watching her every move. If she wanted to make it out alive, she needed a plan, and fast. She went to the laundry room and stuffed clothes under her bedsheets to make it look like she was sleeping. Then, carefully, she pried open the basement window. It was small, barely wide enough. She sucked in a breath and squeezed through, dirt scraping her arms as she dropped onto the cold ground outside. For a second, she just crouched there in the darkness, listening. The house was silent. Had she really made it out? She took a step forward. A hand clamped over her mouth. Sarah thrashed, her muffled scream lost in the night. "Shoo!" a voice hissed. "I'm trying to help you." The grip loosened. She spun around, heart pounding. It was the man from the door. Up close, he looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, stubble shadowing his jaw. He held up his hands in surrender. "I know what Adam is," he said. "And I know how to stop him." Sarah took a shaky step back. "Who are you?" "My name is Mark," he said. "I was engaged to Anna Peterson." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Anna. The woman who had mysteriously disappeared. The woman Sarah was afraid was dead. Mark's eyes darkened. "And I know what he did to her." They drove in silence. Sarah kept her eyes on the road, hands gripping the wheel as Mark guided her toward the address on the back of the photo. "This place," he said, "is where Adam takes them." Sarah's stomach twisted. "Them." Her throat was dry. "Anna. She found out about him, just like you did," Mark said. "And she tried to run. But Adam, he's careful. He's been doing this for years." Sarah swallowed hard. "Doing what?" Mark's face was grim. "Taking women. Keeping them just long enough to make them disappear without a trace." Sarah shook her head, refusing to believe it. That doesn't make sense. If he's a serial... He's not just a killer, Mark interrupted. He's a collector. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. Mark reached into his pocket and pulled out a USB drive. This has everything, he said. Proof. Photos. Documents. The FBI couldn't catch him because they didn't have a trail to follow. He makes sure of that. Sarah hesitated before taking the drive. But as soon as her fingers touched it, her phone rang. Adam's name flashed on the screen. Sarah's breath hitched. She let it go to voicemail. A few seconds later, a text appeared. Come home, sweetheart. Let's talk. Then another. I know where you are. Sarah's pulse spiked. Her hands tightened around the wheel. Mark's voice was sharp. Drive. Now. They arrived at the location, a rundown, abandoned storage unit on the outskirts of town. Sarah's heart pounded as she stepped out of the car, the cold night air pressing in around her. Mark led her to a rusted door and shoved it open. The stench of decay hit her instantly. And inside, Sarah screamed. Polaroid pictures covered the walls. Women. So many women. Bound, gagged, terrified. And in the center of the room, a chair. Shackles bolted to the arms and legs. Mark's voice was hoarse. This is where he keeps them before they disappear. Sarah turned, bile rising in her throat. Then she saw it. A photo. One that hadn't been there long. One of her. Sarah's knees buckled. Mark grabbed her. We have to go. A gunshot rang out. Mark's body jerked. He crumpled to the ground. Sarah whipped around. Adam stood in the doorway. Calm. Smiling. Holding a gun. Sarah choked on a sob. Why? Adam sighed, shaking his head. Oh, sweetheart. He stepped closer. You should have just stayed home. Sarah's breath came in short, ragged gasps. Mark lay motionless on the cold concrete floor, blood pooling beneath him. Adam stood in the doorway, gun in hand, his expression eerily calm. You should have just let it go, he said, shaking his head. We were happy, weren't we? Sarah's body trembled. You killed them. Adam sighed, as if she had just accused him of something ridiculous. Sarah. You think you know the whole story? She took a step back, her heart pounding against her ribs. Adam twirled the gun lazily in his hand. I don't kill them, sweetheart. I save them. Sarah's stomach twisted. Save them? A slow smile spread across his lips. The world is a dangerous place. People go missing every day. But the ones I choose? They don't just vanish. They become part of something greater. Sarah's hands curled into fists. You're insane. Adam sighed again, disappointed. I was hoping you'd understand. He lifted the gun. Sarah lunged. She grabbed the rusted metal chair beside her and swung it with everything she had. The gun went off, bang. Pain seared across her shoulder as she crashed to the floor. Adam staggered back, clutching his face where the chair had struck him. Sarah gasped, biting back the scream threatening to escape. Blood soaked her sleeve. She had to move. Now. Sarah scrambled to her feet and bolted toward the door. Adam roared in fury. Sarah! She didn't stop. She sprinted through the dark storage facility, weaving between rusted shelves and broken crates. Her vision blurred with pain, but she pushed forward. Behind her, footsteps. Adam was coming. Faster. Closer. A door loomed ahead, a heavy metal exit. Sarah threw herself against it. It didn't budge. No. No. She banged against it, fingers scrabbling for a latch, a handle, anything. Click. The unmistakable sound of a gun cocking. She froze. Adam's voice was right behind her. I didn't want it to end like this. Tears stung her eyes. This was it. Then, another voice. Drop the gun! Red and blue lights flashed outside. The air exploded with sound, shouting, footsteps, the unmistakable roar of an engine. The door burst open. Armed FBI agents swarmed the room. Adam spun, raising his weapon. A single shot rang out, Sarah flinched, bracing for the impact. But it never came. Adam staggered backward, a crimson bloom spreading across his chest. His mouth opened in shock. "No! He collapsed. Silence followed. Sarah could barely breathe. She turned. One of the agents rushed toward her. "Sarah Carter?" She nodded weakly. "You're safe now." The next few hours were a blur. Paramedics tended to her wound. The FBI combed through the storage unit, uncovering evidence of Adam's horrific crimes. Files. Video recordings. Personal items from victims long thought missing. Sarah sat in the back of an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket, watching as they zipped Adam's body into a black bag. Mark had survived. He sat beside her, his arm wrapped in bandages. He almost got away with it. Sarah's voice was hoarse. "How did they know where to find us?" Mark pulled out his phone, a faint smile on his lips. "The USB drive. I sent it to the FBI before we even got here." Sarah exhaled, relief flooding through her. But then, something gnawed at her. She turned to the lead FBI agent. "You said Adam was part of something bigger. What does that mean?" The agent's expression darkened. He hesitated. Then, finally, he spoke. Adam wasn't working alone. Sarah's blood ran cold. Somewhere out there, someone else was watching. Waiting. And this nightmare wasn't over. As the ambulance doors shut, Sarah caught a glimpse of a dark figure in the crowd. A man in a black coat. Standing still. Watching her. Their eyes met. He smiled. And then, he vanished. Sarah's heart pounded. Because deep down, she knew. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning.